Audible Studios presents The Magic of the Unicorn, written by Deborah Lerm Goodman, performed by Aaron Moon, and directed by you. Warning: this story is different from other stories. You and you alone are in charge of what actually happens. There are dangers, adventures, and consequences, all depending on the choices you make. And the wrong choice could end in disaster, even death. Good luck. The summer of 1507 is exceptionally dry throughout Flanders. Fires scorch the forests, crops wither, and animals collapse from thirst. Nowhere is the drought as severe as in your own small village. Just last week, when you went to check the dwindling water supply, you discovered a dead rat floating in the well upon which everyone depended. Since then, the water has been foul and tainted. The barrels of rainwater are nearly empty, and all attempts to dig a new well have yielded nothing but dry earth. One morning, after weeding the field you inherited when your parents died 10 years ago, you pay a visit to Marie-Claire. She is the oldest person in the village and one of your special friends. Some people say this might be the last summer any of us lives to see, you tell her sadly. None of the other villages around here has enough water to share with us, and it's hopeless to keep trying to dig a new well. I wish there were something I could do about it. Marie-Claire looks up from her knitting. You could try to lure a unicorn to the well. Why, the touch of its horn purifies even poison. But, Marie-Claire, you exclaim, around here unicorns are rarer than water. I bet it would be easier to find the sorceress than a unicorn. That's a good idea, she replies. I'm sure the sorceress knows all about unicorns. Why don't you look for her? But no one has seen her in years, you remind Marie-Claire. The last person who tried to find her never returned. Ah, but you are 10 times smarter than anyone who has ever searched for the sorceress. If anyone can find her, it's you. Although you feel flattered, you are not sure you are really clever enough. Well, I'll give it a try. I wonder if I still remember that riddle describing the way to find the sorceress. Is this right? You take a deep breath and recite. Near a land reserved for woe, in a place that's high but low. Watch which way the bat doth go. Find me there, and I will know. Perfect, says Marie-Claire as she hands you a glass pendant shaped like a raindrop. Put on my good luck talisman. Use it as you need it, my friend. You say goodbye to Marie-Claire, then roam the parched fields. After pondering the riddle, you think of 2 places reserved for woe. The sorceress could mean the village graveyard or the small camp outside the village where 2 men who suffer from leprosy live in gloomy isolation. Do you go to the leper camp or head for the graveyard? Even though the path to the graveyard is all downhill, you're hot and thirsty by the time you arrive there. You sit in the shade of a drooping tree to cool off. As you watch parched leaves float to the dusty ground, you consider the next line of the riddle. In a place that's high but low. What can be both high and low? Looking around, you notice the rolling slopes of the hills along the far side of the graveyard. They seem to be both high and low. But then the church bell rings, striking noon. Turning, you realize the steeple of the church also fits the riddle. The church itself is in a low valley, but the steeple towers high above the village. Do you walk over to the hills or enter the church. When you go inside the church, Brother Michel looks up from the candelabrum he is polishing. "I was just wishing for some company. What are you up to, my friend?" "I'm looking for the sorceress." You explain your interpretation of the riddle. Brother Michel strokes his chin. "I don't believe anyone has ever considered the graveyard or steeple when figuring out that riddle, so you may be on the right track." The next line of the riddle says to watch which way the bat goes. You tell him. "Have you ever seen bats here?" "Plenty," he exclaims. "At night they fly around the steeple. I've heard them down in the cellar, too, although I never actually go there." "I didn't know there was a cellar under the church." "Oh, there's a crawl space there, but it's too small to be very useful," says Brother Michel. "Not only that, it's so infested with spiders that no one dares set foot in it. It would be a clever place for the sorceress to hide. If I had the courage, I'd look there." You're tempted to investigate the cellar, even though you don't like the idea of running into a web full of spiders. You also remind yourself that the riddle mentions a place that's high but low, and the cellar doesn't fit that description as well as the steeple does. Do you go down into the cellar or up into the steeple? "Will you help me climb up the steeple?" You ask Brother Michel. "I'll hoist you onto the rafter, but after that you're on your own," he says. "I'm afraid to climb that high." Brother Michel lifts you over his head up toward the rafter. You grab the beam. After a few seconds of scrambling, you right yourself safely on the rafter. "What are you going to do next?" calls Brother Michel nervously. You look around. "See that rope dangling from the church bell? Would you please move it closer so I can grab hold of it and climb all the way to the top of the steeple?" He takes hold of the bottom of the rope and carries it toward you. "I can't bring it any closer," he says. "I'll have to take a leap. Let's hope I can grab that rope," you tell him with more confidence than you actually feel. "Here goes." You hurl your body toward the rope and miraculously manage to grab it tightly. As you sway from side to side, the clanging of the bell is almost deafening. "Oh no," wails Brother Michel. "Now the whole village will come running to find out why the bell is ringing. Just wait till they see I've allowed you to climb all over the church." You pay no attention. A trap door by the base of the bell has swung open, releasing a frightened bat. It flutters anxiously around you, then swoops out the window below. "What's behind that door up there?" you ask Brother Michel. "I had no idea it was there," he replies. Then the next line of the riddle, "Watch which way the bat doth go," springs into your mind. You think you should probably follow the bat out the window, but you're very curious about the trap door. Do you follow the bat out the window, or climb up to find out what's beyond the trap door? "I'm going to see what's behind the trap door," you tell Brother Michel. "I'll keep the villagers outside so they won't distract you," he calls to you. "Be careful." The bell rings loudly as you climb up the rope. At the top, you crawl through the opening into a small, dark compartment. The tiny room is empty save for a large goblet brimming with a clear, colorless liquid. Hesitantly, you take a sip. When you realize it is fresh, cool water, you take several sizable gulps. You pause for a second and notice the goblet is just as full as it was when you first discovered it. Being careful not to drop the glass, you climb down from the steeple. Quite a bit of water spills on the way, but the goblet remains full. You rush outside to show Brother Michel and find the entire village gathered with him. "Look what I discovered!" you shout. You pass the goblet among the puzzled villagers. They each take a drink and marvel at the endless supply of water. Brother Michel shakes his head with disbelief. My grandmother's great-grandmother told her a saint had blessed our village with a secret treasure, he tells you. All my life, I've tried to figure out what it was. You found it. Before you know what's happening, you find yourself on the shoulders of your friends and neighbors. The crowd cheers your cleverness and courage as they march toward their parched fields with the magic goblet. The end.